I'm just want to make sure that B doesn't inhibit A with the ministry, us getting A with the ministry, with regards to having the property already.
Director Malloy.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask for Manager Hall to take a stab at that question because it was the idea that he's put forward to me in the past around the notion of how to put forward to the ministry the strength of the board's interests in terms of motions.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll have a go at this. We're never completely certain as to how the ministry will review submissions of this selectmen that brings forward. Obviously, when you compare the two proposals coming forward, the ministry would, if across the province and 72 boards, has to divvy up, as we know this year, $350 million, that if a proposal like B in this case is somewhat less expensive than proposal A, and if that option is available to the ministry for approval as opposed to option A, they may look at that and they may not agree to approve A, but would in fact suggest to the board that we approve your project based on your proposal to rebuild on the existing site, and in this case the B that you're suggesting. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, it does. And so I'm just going to put this out there right now. So it may be wise at this stage, until we see what happens with A, is to have some sort of a tabling motion for B and C, so that we don't, so that we wait and see for the ministry's approval on our A option, still leaving our other options to bring back to the board once we know for sure whether we've got A or not. So I just want to put that out there right now.
Mr. Chairman, are we dealing with A at this point?
We won't be dealing with A right now. So let's start by dealing with item A. Trustee Grant.
I just want to be clear, Mr. Chair. I know we're talking about A, B, and C, but we did add on the front page of the action for this item, North Secondary Accommodation Review, we did add that C, D, and E of that page. I would think they would stay, given the conversation that was going on, that they would still stay with the A piece. I wish there was another way to number this or identify these things, but I hope I've made myself perfectly muddy. And I should use a microphone.
Thank you.
So on item A, Trustee Petal.
Sorry, can I get some comment from staff on what would the risk, if anything, be with the ministry if we open-ended the date of the opening of the school and simply said that we would like it? I mean, this is just, I'm wondering if it would give it more emphasis to say we want it open as soon as possible. So we don't limit ourselves to September 2015. Maybe we could be ready earlier, maybe not. We know it's always a bit difficult to figure it out anyway, but would it lose us anything if we changed through friendly amendment the date to as soon as possible?
So on A, you're suggesting changing opening date
Yes,
to a
if
certain
staff
Let's see
tells
what
us it's not going to
Associate
cause us
Director
any harm.
Let's see
Through
what
you,
Associate
Mr. Chair, because the funding, should we be fortunate enough to receive any, is contingent upon a September 15 opening, could I ask that the phrase "no later than September 15" be
Okay,
inserted?
no later then? Okay, so can I make that as a friendly amendment?
I'm okay. Mover seems okay with it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, I have Trustee Turkster next.
This is just on A, right?
Yes, please.
All right, I forget what I was going to say about that, because I was thinking about C, D, and E, which I was hoping to add F and G for a boundary review and transportation review. Because I think they're all important to the discussion, so will we talk about that later? Okay, so we're just
Any other discussions on point A? Seeing none, let's
Oh,
call.
oh, sorry, Larry, I just saw another date within that, because have we tripped ourselves up now with the no later than September 25th? Because earlier in the line, we actually say when the schools are closed. So
Maybe that should say.
that's now out of sync. How do we word that? We put the no later than in that as well? No, sooner than.
No, sooner than.
No, sooner than, wouldn't it be?
I mean, through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, I think we need a definitive date or somehow narrow down when schools are going to close, because there's planning that goes into the closure of schools, and there's communities that want to know when they close. So while I agree we tripped up, but we have to clarify that, I think we need to be specific as to when the school closures would occur.
Can't we say in coordination with the opening of the new school? Why can't we have language that gets us to that place? That they will close. So, I mean, I think we probably have to reword this a little bit to get there, but wouldn't that be a safer place to go? That it's coordinated to the opening of the new school?
Mr. Chair, I think that's pretty well automatic. We're not going to have a brand new school opening and not move them in. You know, because you're not ready. If the school is ready to open, you're going to move them in.
Okay, may I suggest this, the closure of Delta Parkman Sir John A. secondary schools upon opening of a new school.
Well, you still have to have end the building of a new school.
Yeah, upon opening and the building of a new school in central location. So essentially, it's just saying they close when the new one opens. Is that Trustee Sanders?
Well, staff's words are still in my ears. The ministry likes specifics. And I think I don't want to move away from specifics on this. Let's show the ministry that, we have our timelines.
Okay, Director Malloy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify what staff is rifling through papers to determine. The ministry wants to be sure that any schools they approve are open in September of 2015. As long as that's the outside date, staff is not seeing a problem if for some reason there was approvals and there was an ability to move forward and open a school earlier. Not a problem. In terms of the clarity that's expected when school communities are closed, usually school communities like to have clarity around that. If this board is willing to create a motion that suggests when one is finished, the others will close, that is in your purview to decide. And so it's up to you. We don't want you to think that staff is saying that the ministry won't like it or need something different. As long as your dates coincide, you'll be fine.
So since I think I still have the floor on that little trip up that we had, I think I heard our chair suggest that instead of the June date, we say upon opening, so it would read the closure of Delta Parkview and Sir John A. Macdonald Secondary Schools upon opening a new school. So you don't say and the building of, you wouldn't need it. Upon the opening of a new school in a centrally located site pending ministry approval with an opening date no later than September 2015. Then we have one date within it and we don't trip up. Do you want me to do that again?
Oh, I got it down here already.
Okay, good.
I
Great.
think we're going to land the same place. Trustee Bishop?
Great.
I'm sorry, as a seconder, I have some problems with this. The schools will want to do, they will want to be able to plan for they want to have their last graduation in their schools. They'll want to plan celebrations about, they'll want to have their, after school. They'll want to have their alumni come. There'll be alumni who want to come. So, I think, the fact is that we know that it's not terribly likely that the school is going to be ready much before September 2015. But I think from the point of view of the schools, they would want to have a complete, to finish a year and have a proper celebration from their point of view in terms of how they're thinking. So I'm sorry, I think we have to leave this motion as it is.
Trustee Bell?
Well, I appreciate the concern, but I think that where we're going with this, we're going to know the answer to that in the relatively near future, so planning can still happen. I don't see that planning, the planning that's being mentioned as problematic, as being that much of a risk, because, you know, within a year, we're going to know that. I mean, it's only 2012 right now. So we're talking a 3.5-year window of trying to get a few more things in order, right? And then we'll know when that school's gonna open. So I don't see it as problematic.
If I can, we're going to need a motion to change this now, and I'm going to presume trustee Peddle is going to move the changes that was just suggested.
Well, the mover already
The seconder has it.
amendment.
The seconder has it.
And the seconder has that right? I didn't know that.
I've got the right to roll it into a vote if necessary. So presume you're going to move that as a motion then to change that?
If that's the way we're gonna go, I think it's precedent setting, quite frankly, but.
Thank you for move. So I need a seconder to move the changing of the word. Thank you, trustee Johnson. Johnstone. Okay. Any discussion on the change of the wording? The closure of Delta, Parkview, and Sir John A. Macdonald Secondary School upon opening of a new school on a centrally located site pending ministry approval with opening date no later than September 2015. Trustee Terpstra?
I can support that because the kids who are graduating in June 2015, I think they're in grade 10 right now, 9? I don't think they're thinking about their graduation quite yet. And I think we have enough time to land the site that we're going to be at. We're hopeful, and the date will be known within the next year for sure. And so there's plenty of time to plan for graduation and celebrations and closures, so I can support that.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers on that? No? Okay, Kathy, you got the motion okay? Okay, I got it written down. Thank you. All right, seeing no more discussion, all in favor of the amendment first. Trustee Brennan, trustee Johnstone, trustee Hicks, trustee White, trustee Mulholland, trustee Simmons, trustee Barlow, student trustee Janice, student trustee Shen, trustee Terpstra, trustee Peddle. Opposed to the amendment. Trustee Fisher. Okay. Now, any other discussion now on the amended motion? Seeing none, all in favor of item A. Trustee, that is unanimous for those in attendance. Thank you very much. So staff need to make it happen. Kathy, you're all right? Now we'll go to item B. And discussion on item B.
Oh.
Trustee Peddle.
Move to table.
Need some language on that.
Oh, move to table until September. No. What? Sorry, I thought we just wanted to table. That's what. Okay, am I mixed up the B's and the C's and the double C's and the double D's? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm confused. Start over.
All right. So I know it's confusing with the C's, B's, and D's and the AB. Let's do a do-over. It's only happened once in Major League Baseball history. Scott Sinsabox's job is to find that history when there was one do-over done in Major League history. So you work on that. Trustee Simmons, you want to speak?
Yes, if, we need context around the tabling, I think, for the purpose of the ministry. The tabling, if we choose to table B, it would, the tabling motion should state it would come back if we can't follow through with A.
Oh, okay.
I think you better be careful.
So are you moving that motion, or are you just saying?
I'm just helping the
Okay.
trustee.
Well, sorry, if I can go back to the, I was just trying to help the earlier trustee Simmons, so maybe I'll just back out and let trustee Simmons do it completely, okay? You started this about an hour ago, so.
Before you do that, I've got two speakers. Trustee Terpstra.
I believe we've already discussed this item, so we can't table it.
Only people that can table this would be somebody that hasn't spoken to me.
That would be trustee Brennan.
So there is another option, so just for people's information, I mean, as I mentioned, those that want to table these, ask people that haven't spoke to these items. And there's only a couple so far that haven't spoken to these. You could also create a whole new motion, just essentially saying, trustee Hicks, you got your hand up.
When we get to C, there's a lot of people that have not spoken on C.
That's correct.
Most of the discussion is not being on A and B. I just want to
That's correct.
clarify that because
That
it's
is
my
correct.
intention to do something with C.
I understand that. Trustee White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do, and I've spoken on all of these, so I obviously won't be tabling any of them. But in terms of sticking to B, which is the one we are discussing, I don't believe this item.
Sorry, these were not discussed, because if somebody wants to move this, I don't know if someone wants to move this first, or do you want to just carry on discussion later?
Have we not moved all?
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, yeah, sorry, I'm getting books thrown at me here. Go ahead, carry on.
Okay, so in terms of discussing B, like I said earlier, I do have some of the data that was kindly provided by staff. But in terms of B, I don't think, and I feel very strongly, Mr. Chair, that B should not be tabled. I don't think this is an option that the board should be considering. Like I said earlier, to have the gap between Westmount and Delta is not a wise decision. As we mentioned, these are, our two oldest high schools. A long time ago, these were probably the two closest together. We're actually going back in time, and they'll actually, if this is the case, well, these will be the two closest schools in the lower cities. We're going back 100 years in terms of our locations that we've picked. Yes, Westdale. I'm corrected by the trustee from the mountain. Yeah, Westdale, I certainly meant that. Parkview, Parkside, Westdale, West whatever, Mount View, okay. So, I do not support any tabling of this motion. I do not think this is a feasible option for the lower city, as I said earlier. It would end up to the point where Hamilton Center, at least lower Hamilton Center, not including the mountain portion of Hamilton Center, but the lower portion of Hamilton Center would be without a high school, which I think is pretty unprecedented for an urban city. So, for C, not speaking too much to it, I would support tabling. B, I don't think we should even consider this option. It would be a poor layout. I think it would be a poor message to our communities. I think we should either withdraw it or vote it down right now, Mr. Chair. So that's what I urge my fellow trustees to do.
Okay, trustee Petal?
Well, listening to what trustee White just said, I think it's procedurally correct for anybody to move to withdraw. And I don't think it matters whether or not you've spoken. And that would allow us to bring it back some future time as opposed to voting it down or tabling it. So I will move to withdraw.
I'll second that.
Okay, that can be done, I believe. I think anybody can do that. Actually, anybody can table it to us on it. Okay, so it takes majority to, yes, trustee Hall.
The motion is to withdraw what?
Item B.
Could I have a reason why before I can decide whether I want to withdraw it?
Yeah.
What is the reason for withdrawing?
Yeah, we can do that. Trustee Petal was the move.
Well, I was listening to the debate for the last 2 hours or so and how the sentiment was around this one, and given the strength of what we've just approved with A, that's our game plan. I think that we should put all of our momentum and energy into that and hold off on the rest, and I'm doing it as a withdrawal so it gives us flexibility for the future.
It does make sense. But my problem is that because of the discussion from the trustee who seconded, he's brought up another school, which is Churchill. And on this, if Delta and Churchill both disappear, I don't worry about Andrew Horvath. I'd have no secondary school to work for, and that's more important.
Okay, trustee Hicks.
Through the chair, it's my understanding that if you withdraw a motion, then that finishes that process. Am I correct? So, by the time we get to the board, well, I need clarification. Some people are saying wrong. So, I need clarification through the chair. If this motion is withdrawn, does that mean that this is finished? That this is finished? So when we get to the board meeting and we accept A, and I hope my comments on C, then that finishes it. So if we ever wanted to bring it back, we would have to have another arc.
No, I don't believe so. Trustee Brennan has a hand high.
I believe on, yes. that
I need
by means,
clarification.
Please see me. In terms of procedure, the fact that it's withdrawn just means we're not going to talk about it right now. It has every right to come back at any other time.
Somebody can bring it back at any time. Sure.
Anytime, that's my understanding.
Just withdraw it. It could come back in the same words, or it could come back in modified words, quite frankly. All right, so we have a motion on the table to withdraw, moved by trustee Petal, seconded by trustee White. Any other discussion on withdrawing this item D? Seeing none, all in favor of withdrawal? That is trustee Brennan, trustee Hicks, trustee White, trustee Barlow, trustee Bishop, student trustee Janice, student trustee Shen, trustee Turkster, trustee Petal. Opposed? Trustee Johnstone, trustee Mahonen, and trustee Simmons. So the withdrawal motion passes 6-3. Now we move to C on this motion, not C on the original papers. I recognize trustee Hicks first, then I'll recognize you.
Through the chair, I would table C, and my rationale for tabling C, and if we do not get funding from the ministry, or we cannot fund it ourselves, I believe that we must give a clear message to the community.
Sorry, let me just jump in. I need a second before we do some debate. So, any seconder for that? Trustee Brennan seconding. Thank you. Carry on, trustee Hicks.
And we need to give the community a clear message that we need to close schools. If we don't have this table to bring back in case we cannot build a new school, it would be extremely important to let the people know that we have a backup plan and then we can bring it back at any time. So
Tabled until
A is no longer possible.
Can I just do a point of order?
I don't think we're allowed to actually speak to table motions.
You're right or not?
You have to the date.
Yeah, I think you're right.
On the date.
Trustee
I'm
Turkster.
missing a date.
That's why I asked him until when.
Yeah, but
I've got until written down. Trustee Turkster.
Just a point of order, the vote was 7-3 for the last one, because
Oh,
there's 10 of us.
You're right, stand correct.
Thank you.
All right. So the date, we're still tabling until
A is exhausted.
the tabling motion until A is exhausted. All in favor of table? Trustee Brennan? Good. Forget. Okay, so trustee Brennan, trustee Johnstone, trustee Hicks, trustee White, trustee Simmons, trustee Barlow, trustee Bishop, student trustee Janice, student trustee Shen, trustee Turkster, trustee Petal. Oppose the tabling, abstaining from the table. Abstain. Okay, we have now trustee Brennan.
Sorry, I'm just going to withdraw my hand.
You're going to withdraw your hand? Didn't move down as fast as I wanted.
No.
So we still have left on the table items C, D, and E from this report. So C, as the director points out, as I was just about to say, actually is now redundant. So if I can go to trustee Bishop, we'll just get rid of that C, so we have no more 2Cs.
That's good.
Now we'll go to D, creation of post-art committee. Do we have to withdraw? I don't think we have to withdraw when it's written down.
Has it been moved?
No, none of these three are moved. The original ones are moved by, these three were moved by trustee Simmons and trustee Bishop.
We added them all in this agenda. I put all these three on the table.
You did, but I thought that was going to be dealt with separately. I didn't think it was all under the same motion. Maybe I misinterpreted.
Well, how else do you put motions on the teachers' agenda?
Yeah, you probably got a good point.
So then we have to withdraw.
So then we'll have to withdraw. All right. All right, so we'll withdraw C. We need a motion to withdraw that, so we'll withdraw. Thanks, trustee Bishop, and trustee Churchka. So withdrawing 2C. If anybody understand what we're talking about, that's the one that all schools open until such time.
It's redundant.
Okay, so we all understand what we're voting on right now? The second C. The C on this one.
Number 1C on the actual motion.
The one that says that all schools remain open until such time as new facility.
Right.
All right, so all in favor of withdrawing that one? That is trustee Brennan, trustee Hicks, trustee White, trustee Simmons, trustee Barlow, trustee Bishop, student trustee Janice, student trustee Shen, trustee Churchka. 7 opposed, and trustee Mullen opposed, and trustee Johnstone and trustee Petal out of the room. Yeah, no shame back to that. Okay, so you got that, Ken? Well, the count was three, everybody but Ray, so I'm in better right now. I'm just teasing. Ray's got good reason. So it's 7. Good reason. 7 for, 1 opposed, and 2 student trustees for, and 2 absent. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Why doesn't that add up? No, that would be 13. 7, yes, 7 for, 1 against.
Should be 8 for, 1 against.
No, Laura wasn't.
Laura
Oh,
wasn't in the room.
Laura wasn't in the room.
That's right.
Oh, it says, that's right.
So Laura and Alex are absent, so that's 7, that's 10. So that adds up right. Kathy, I got it written down here. My audits always go through. Okay, so now we're on D, which is the creation of a post-ARC committee comprised of school council members, students, parents, staff, and community members to inform direction around the transition program, facilities, and supports for the preservation of the Parkview program. Speaking of that, Karen, trustee Church.
I will move that, but I'd also add,
No, that's sorry, they're already both moved already.
oh, so I would like to add to that transportation in that discussion.
Do that if the mover and the seconder are okay with that one? You're fine, Okay. Yeah, okay, so that's fine. So creation of post-ARC committee comprises so on and so forth, and we'll add transportation in there as well. Get that, guys? Yeah. Okay, so any discussion around item D? Trustee Bishop, I presume?
Well, Mr. Chairman, this is particularly important to the art committee and parents and it is a way in which to have a very meaningful dialogue. I think it's a very important recommendation decision.
Trustee Churchman.
Should we add SEAC to that? No? Okay.
All right, yeah, I think this motion comes directly from the art committee too, I believe, is that right? Yeah. Any other discussion around item D? Trustee Simmons.
Thank you. This is, I think, a very particularly important motion for our entire community to start getting an understanding of not just the programming needs around our special needs students, but how it also intertwines with the programming for our whole system. Because really, when you're talking programming, it's hard to just nip it to one group, because I think in the direction we're going, in a more cohesive, with more cohesive programming within our individual schools, we'll see how they intertwine. We're also going to look at how students will be challenged further, I think, to reach further for greater potential. And what I'm hoping, what we're going to see is see how we can improve our graduation rates, especially for our special needs children, especially for the programs, Parkview kids coming out of the Parkview program, so that that will be a real measure, I think, to our success on student success, on how much better our graduation rates will look for these students. So I'm looking forward to seeing D in action.
Any other comments on item D? Trustee Turner.
I just wanted to understand why we wouldn't add SEAC to that.
Maybe Trustee Bishop, her hand went up.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe because there is only one representative, in practical terms, there's only one representative who on the SEAC committee who represents a parent on our local Parkview student. But in much more realistic terms, I think it's really important that the people who are directly involved, the parents of the students, the school, the school community, to be involved in working out the issues. Because I know that staff will be giving a lot of support to this, Mr. Chairman, and that everyone will be looking for the best models, for the best outcomes, but it will be very much driven by the parents, and they need to see that it's driven by themselves and their local community, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Trustee Pennell, or Trustee Turner still have the floor.
Same point.
I just see it as, adding value to the committee, really. They have an enormous amount of experience with all special education students, and if I saw from the profile of the Parkview student, they had, 275 students with 275 special needs, and they're uniquely 275 individuals. So, why not have SEAC see that? Because they don't just fall into one category as a Parkview student. They all have extremely wide, let's say, issues, problems, challenges, strengths. So I would just see it as adding value to the committee. It could be optional. I mean, they don't have to go, but it's good to name them in a special education committee that's outside of, I don't know, I just see it as adding value. Maybe you can hear from staff if they think that's adds value.
Let's see what Superintendent Corcoran says. Let's hear it. Chair.
Yes, the chair's done. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It would be appropriate, I believe, to invite them and leave their membership up to them.
Trustee Pennell.
So I have a completely different perspective on how they're involved. I think we're kind of stuck on the practicality positioning that was put forward. Why couldn't the transition plan be presented to SEAC at a SEAC committee on their agenda so that they can touch in on it and chime in on what they're seeing? I mean, I think the whole conversation was revolving around expecting somebody from SEAC to get on this committee. That's one approach, but there's probably a far more practical way to do it, which is every once in a while, maybe once every 6 months, take a little report to them. Let somebody go to SEAC, go to them and get the benefit of the wide group. Why can't we do that? And then put SEAC in this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The mandate of SEAC is to provide input on programs regarding special education. So that is part of their mandate. And even if a member of this transition committee did not present, we would still bring the information to them because that is part of their mandate.
Okay, so the mover and seconder are willing to accept it?
Yes, that's fine.
Great.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion on item D? Seeing none, all in favor of item D? All in favor, thank you. That's unanimous to those in the room. That leaves item E. Facilities Management Department will consult with the principal and specialist to ensure that the remaining facilities meet the program strategy and address the renewal needs as outlined by this ARC committee. discussion on E? Seeing none. All in favor by trustee Churchman?
So the remaining facilities in this are Glendale and OP and Sir Winston Churchill. And hopefully Delta for trustee Mulholland. So addressing the renewal needs, is that based on the criteria then? Or is that based on the 20% that's set aside?
Dr. Malloy?
Through you, Mr. Chair, trustees may recall that this particular recommendation is in all three reports. It connects to the program strategy work that needs to be done. It connects to the appropriate placement in terms of the facilities that we have. It's doing that boundary work. It's doing all of those things that are suggested. So this is just an overall recommendation that we would be bringing before you each time we're meeting around the ARC decisions.
Okay, so let's really hone in on this. The savings from the operations of the closure of the other schools, along with the property disposition, I would assume is going to go to the new school. Are the operational savings then going towards this? Or I'm looking at, where is the money coming from if it's not coming from property disposition?
Let's go with Don.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it is fair to say that the reductions in operational costs that we currently expend each year on all of the facilities that were part of this ARC, and as Director Malloy said, all of the schools and all of the ARCs is far higher now because of all the schools. When we, in this case, have closed 3 schools, all of those dollars that would normally through operations that are spent for maintenance related items would now be able to be directed directly at the remaining schools. A new school would obviously have a lot less, so we wouldn't be needing to spend it there. So in fact, you'll be increasing the amount that goes directly there. In relation to capital dollars, it would be fair to assume that the school renewal grants that we receive each year, which again are allocated across our board with fewer secondary schools, again, the amount of dollars available to put to the remaining schools would increase. So therefore, we'd look to do that.
So it's a combination then of capital dollars and operating and maintenance savings. So I don't know if we just know that. We're good with that? Just want to know the source of the, because is it going to be, the more schools you close, does that then go into the entire systems bucket of renewal? Or does it stay in the north cluster and go to those other 1, 2, 3 other schools? Because that was how the funding strategy came across.
John, go ahead.
I'll try to answer this again through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, we currently, as you know, approve a certain amount of projects within our entire system. I'm not sure the trustees would want us to analyze how much we've invested in the north versus the south versus the west, and then take that same proportion and then apply it to the other schools within those clusters. What I would suggest is that there will be more renewal dollars available for the fewer number of schools, and as it's been done in the past, or at least more recently this year, that those allocations would then be through the criteria that we've been using to allocate dollars to all of the schools. I'm not sure if I've been clear on that. So if we're currently spent this year, I'll just use a number, $10 million in the north cluster on 7 schools, and then we have the same amount of money on the remaining 4 schools, that we wouldn't take 10 million again necessarily and put on those 4, because as a board you may determine that there is more urgent needs in other areas within the entire system. So you're more than welcome to suggest that tonight, but that's not what I would suggest you do.
No, that's what I'm getting at, because I want to be clear that the money is going into the system renewal fund, Even though, maybe, some people might think that we should be rewarding the north cluster for closing 3 and building 1, and that's gonna be a different scenario in the other arcs, that the renewal savings have to go into the system. And that's how it's going to work, right?
Director Moore.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and again, and not to try to prolong this particular piece, but to say it clearly, you have seen proposed business cases that are being used to determine this first part of capital after decisions are made. So there are dollars that would be directed specifically to the business cases that have been presented to you. Then, after such time, as Don Hall just said, it's part of a system fund that we follow our criteria in making decisions around capital and maintenance and so forth. So to clarify and to confirm, the trustee is correct.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that out in the public forum, people think that the renewal savings from their cluster are going to their cluster schools. Because the funding strategy, the way it came across for funding a new school or funding a renovation was through renewal savings and disposition of property to come up with the cluster is going to basically, or the business case that is going forward is going to be, the new school, less the renewal savings, less the disposition to come up with the dollars. And it was presented to the public in a very, very cluster specific way.
Director Moore.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to look to my team in the corner there in a moment. It is my understanding, and I'm going to ask for correction if it isn't accurate, that when we look at the creation of proposed business cases to provide either proposed new capital or renovated capital, that one could see how disposition of property in certain parts of the board would actually support that. Dollars saved from these decisions would actually be earmarked for that. But there was no intention that I understood that after we moved through that initial phase, that dollars would stay clustered, both in operations, capital, and maintenance. So through you, Mr. Chair, if there was something that my team who is at all of the meetings may have shared that might have led people in that direction, I'm going to need clarification from them.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, every ARC was required to put together a funding strategy for their proposal. And similar to the terms of reference, that funding strategy fell within the schools involved in that ARC. The strategy, as it's outlined in the reports, include total capital costs and total estimated proceeds of disposition from the sale of the sites in that particular ARC. And those were really the two elements of their program strategy. Their funding strategy. Renewal, yes, there are renewal savings, but that was never a component of the overall funding strategy for that particular ARC. It was what capital is required, how can we generate that through the proceeds of disposition from the sale of the sites contained within this particular ARC, and the leftover or the balance would be therefore funded through the business case submissions to the Ministry of Education. So renewal and operational savings, while considerations and identified in the SIP, were never part of the overall funding strategy for each of the individual ARCs.
I don't think that's the public perception. But
Trustee Brennan.
I think what I'm hearing is that in the very short term, and maybe that's 2 years or 3 years, in order to complete the strategies from each of the cluster ARC recommendations, it probably will be within the business cases that we in fact saw. But then after that, after the renovations have been done, after the new schools or whatever, that the renewal savings within each cluster will not stay just within the cluster. It would be part of just any system budget. And so I see that as more middle term. And I see our understanding and the public understanding is more short term. Is that a fair restatement?
Yeah.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, that's fair enough. There are the short-term implications to get the project off the ground. There are the midterm implications and the long-term or legacy costs, which we refer to throughout the entire process. And those are the long-term renewal needs at all the other schools and how you are going to now, as Mr. Hall alluded to, take those funds that you would otherwise have spread over 115 schools and now spread it over fewer schools. That way more can be done to the remaining facilities in a shorter period of time.
Any other speakers on this item? Seeing none. Item D, all in favor? E, sorry, E. E for echo. All in favor, that's unanimous. Thank you. Trustee Turner.
I'd like to add an F motion,
Oh, yes.
and the motion is, should there be the need for a boundary review of the ARC review area and/or beyond the review area, that one be struck immediately after all of the ARCs are completed at the secondary level.
Okay, I think I got it. Should there be whatever.
So should there be
a
the need for a boundary review?
Are to be struck after all ARCs completed at secondary level.
Well, should there be the need for a boundary review of the ARC review area, so just let's say the north ARC,
Okay.
or beyond the review area, so it might go into south or it might go into west. That one be struck immediately after the secondary ARC decisions are made.
Sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, may I ask a clarification? Certainly, the boundary review concept, as you've heard me say this evening, needs to be a part of this. The only question I have is the immediately part. Because until such time as we know what approvals have come and we've worked through some of the issues of what the final answer is going to be, we hope to have that information in the fall where we do the work around program and boundary and transportation and so forth. The only question through you, Mr. Chair, is agreement with the intent, but not understanding the immediately.
So, that they be struck after, well, it doesn't have to be immediate, be struck after the decisions are made along with the program strategy. Or by the end of the year. So until the ministry approves the business plan, is that? I'm looking for help here for the end of my motion.
Associate Director Van, you want to pipe in?
Through you, Mr. Chair, once the business plan has been approved,
Okay.
Be struck once the business plan is approved by the ministry.
Yes.
All right. Friendly amendment by the associate director. I'll take that.
Okay, I think I got that. I need a seconder. Trustee Brennan's hand went up as fast as possible, and I just have to see it. Okay, any discussion on this motion? Oh, the associate director wanted Student trustee Shed.
Through the chair, just wanted to clarify should there be need, what is the need? Like, what's the clear indicator that there's need?
Okay, Director Maloney.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may put this into a brief context. Once the business cases are approved and we have a clear understanding of what our system looks like, then we do facilities work around where might programs be placed according to those facilities. Then we look at boundary issues to see if we've got the right numbers of students. Then we look at the diversity and socioeconomic issues in terms of program placement and how our boundaries impact that, and it culminates with the program strategy. So it's a very complex piece of work that needs the business cases approved so we know exactly what we're working with. So what I would suggest through you, Mr. Chair, is that when that moment comes when business cases are approved, we bring a report to this body that outlines exactly what we propose happens and in what order, so that our public also understands the consultation that needs to be a part of that. That's a recommendation through you.
You got the thumbs up? Should give you a thumbs up. Any other discussion on the motion? Any other questions? Trustee Bell?
Just a question to what the director just said, clarification, and maybe you didn't really mean it in the sequence you said it, but you said that you would do boundaries, then you would do socioeconomic. Do you not have to do socioeconomic in order to set the boundaries? So are they reversed?
Trustee, or Director Milwaukee?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think they're sequential. What we have to put forward is that all of the issues that I've just put together connect.
Okay.
And what we are going to bring forward to you is at least our best thinking on what we're proposing that looks like in terms of proceeding, obviously, to hear from you what your insights are to approve that process, but they are sequential.
Any other discussion on item F? Seeing none, all in favor of item F? That is unanimous.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, in the motion, it was that the report was included.
No, but it's coming.
It's getting up.
Any other discussion on any other topic? Need a motion to adjourn. Trustee Brennan,